Breakdown. Where might we turn for guidance? To the myths, the storytellers, the wisdom keepers, and the rabble-rousers. To the ones braving the seas of uncertainty, not with answers, but with poetry, beauty, and well-crafted questions. I'm Ian Mackenzie, co-founder of the School of Mythopoetics, a place to gather with like-hearted folks to navigate the mysteries together. And this is The Crow's Nest, where I speak with an array of guests who are employing their mythic imagination to engage with the tempest of the times. You're invited to join me live on YouTube each week. Visit schoolofmythopoetics.com/podcast to learn more. And now, enjoy our conversation. In times of chaos and greetings, friends. This is Ian Mackenzie, and I am here on this edition of The Crow's Nest to talk about a very important subject, an important encounter of our times, with two special guests, which I'm delighted to have on here with all of you. And thank you to those who are tuning in live, joining us here as well. And so, without further ado, I am going to bring on these two guests who I've gotten to know, one longer than the other, but both I felt a strong instinct to weave together both their deep medicine that they were bringing, or they have been bringing together. And so first, I'd like to introduce Ubuntu poet and soul consultant, Yolanda Sokiri. Welcome to the show.
Lovely to be with you, Ian. Thank you very much for this opportunity, brother. Thank you so much for calling on both of us. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, pleasure to see where we go. And to my other guest I'll bring on, which is artist and ritual practitioner, MICHE FABRE LEWIN. Welcome as well to you.
Thank you, and how good to be with you both. Hello, Yolanda. Thanks so much.
Well, I'm very interested to see where we go with this, but the occasion in this regard, the occasion, but not the reason perhaps, the occasion is to come together around a particular offering that will be brought forth on the School of Mythopoetics in the near future, Living Stories, which we'll certainly be touching on. But this is also coinciding with Black History Month in the UK, which is a very important time as well to be wondering deeply on this these matters. And I would love to hear from you both as well, like why this felt like this. It kind of coincides almost magically, synchronistically, right? That this offering has come together and sort of emerged at this time. But I'd love to hear from you both, as rooted also there of why is this so necessary to meet this moment with this lens that you're bringing. And to either of you, perhaps, yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I will interpret a gesture for those who can't see and continue to speak. And I think that speaks to the heart of the matter. Black History Month in the United Kingdom, can't say those words as an African, as a Black British citizen, without getting a sense that it's at the root of the colonial lens, it's at the root of the imperialistic lens. And it's so important at this time to afford ourselves a pause, to rest in origin stories, see the myths that have emerged, and ensure that we are part of the very practical, enriching, nourishing storylines that are emerging based on a history, knowing our facts, researching and emerging nonetheless in a heritage line that affords us new promises. So Black History Month in October in the United Kingdom, saluting sisters was so important.
Thank you, Miche.
Well, for me, it's always been an interesting event that in the UK is only a month. And when one thinks how strange it is that one has to focus a special time for a group of people who are probably the global majority, and how the experiences and the understandings of what a life can be in terms of Black history has to somehow coalesce. And I think that speaks a lot as to why Yolanda and I are in this place together with each other, because in a way, every day is Black History Month, as we need to discover what it means to open a lens so that we can actually all be in a relationship with each other that doesn't need to focus a particular month for a space to share and to shine and to offer up neglected and forgotten histories. So I think that's why, in a sense, the celebration of sisterhood, of matriarchs of the movement, means that it does give a flavor of the depth and the expansiveness of our Black and brown kin. And I feel very honored that it should be an event that is very dear to my heart every October in the UK, but really every month is a Black History Month in my life.
I want to name, in particularly, I know I'm drawing from the North American context. I'm living in Canada. Of course, what happens also in the United States also tends to takes up a lot of room, of course, given their global influence. But certainly there seems to have been, in the last 2 years or so, especially, a kind of renaissance of the need to address this kind of blind spot, in particular, sort of galvanized through the George Floyd murder, of course, in the U.S. That seemed to send shockwaves, at least within, again, the white body kin in the West, especially, a sense of like something's really not right here. And of course, Black Lives Matter movement flourishing and having influence as well. And then this kind of almost as much good faith grappling, I would say, as possible, but also a lot of uncertainty from white-bodied folk of really how to show up meaningfully and not fall into certain traps and tropes. And there's been other teachers that have come to the forefront as well. Of course, Resmaa Menakem, Bayo Komolafe, others that have, again, tried to sort of orient about how to approach this subject that doesn't lock itself into a kind of either virtue signaling or a kind of guilt-ridden, collapse on the ground for white-bodied folk that are meaningfully trying to engage with these things. And so there's something around the mythopoetic approach that I feel you both as well are bringing or steeped in through your time. Certainly grateful contributions in the School of Mythopoetics already, but also there's something that, again, you innately are bringing to this encounter, this conversation, that I would love to give a bit of space to speak about now. About why is it so hard in a way to navigate these issues, or has it been, do you see, from the ways in which they've been approached, and how might we approach differently this work that needs to be done?
Yolanda, I'd love to invite you to speak about this, because we had some wonderful preparatory conversations about myth and an expanded sense of what myth and mythopoetics might mean within what we are seeking to constellate and bring forth within living stories and our committed kinship to do this work around white-bodied kin.
Okay. Again, a territory that has no answers, but I'm willing to play around in this very quicksand kind of playground. So I continue to be of those that hold that we can have multiple truths and continue to honor aspects of all of them, knowing that there is no real sense of whole ownership. It really is emergent, and we have a particular part to play, and play we do so in the public space, knowing that we are strengthened within our homes. So an example of that would be that, yes, we are aware that it's Black History Month in the United Kingdom. It's also Domestic Violence Month, and several other aspects are being drawn to our attention. We have an opportunity to recognize that for some individuals, the racist attacks, and they are that, attacks, are daily. They're a form of microaggression, and we haven't got quite the same escape. So I often look at my feet, knowing that my soles do not have the same color, and the same applies to my hands, and yet the rest of me is in one envelope that seems quite distinguished and utterly different from yourselves. Yourselves being white-bodied supporters, white-bodied play partners. And it's so important to be able to continue to reflect on the possibility of diverse play partners who are doing this in their day-to-day, in an ordinary manner, joy-filled. And joy for me is justice, opportunity, and yearning, worth taking a pause after stating it. Joy, justice, opportunity, and yearning. There is no peace without joy. There is no enlivened sense of being without joy. And joy is expansive, capable of so much more than just the emotions, so much more than just a limitation. Let's leave space for what can happen when we have more play partners engaged in this from their heart. That's a start.
Beautiful. Thank you. Something I'd like to pick up on there is the idea that we are in a process of deepening into living myths, and myths that are truth stories, and stories that we're still inhabiting. And one of the things you asked, Ian, was what are the new approaches, what are the new ways that we can open up to be in good faith around these very painful, torturing, and uncomfortable conversations that seem to always get pushed aside when we need to be really looking face to face at what is actually going on and what do we need to do. And so my what do we need to do turns the lens back to myself as a white-bodied being. What are the living myths? What are the myths, the false myths that we need to untell ourselves, that we need to dissolve from? And then what are the new living myths that we need to bring forth and call out and inhabit, and, as Yolanda so beautifully, eloquently puts, joyfully run with, sing with. And that word joy, as Yolanda so powerfully puts, is about justice. You cannot be joyful when you know that other people are not free in the same way that white people have the opportunities that we have. Opportunity is the word, to just live a life true to what it means to be a human being on this planet. And then the yearning, how human is a yearning to just be true to our authentic ways of being on this planet. So those living myths are what we're looking to inhabit, to co-create, to discover with each other as white-bodied kin, in the heartfelt support of someone who is in a black skin and who is there giving guidance and giving a resonance of what it means to bring Black and whiteness into kinship. So that's what I would invite us to be working with, is the living myths that mythopoetics is helping to contain us within.
Yeah. I wanted to hop in, excuse me. I think that might be also part of the myth journey, is reflecting on an encounter and reflecting on the very real component. It's so interesting how relationships create myths, and I wouldn't be able to have this conversation without stating the word relationships. What are the relationships that are created? And not just within 1 month, not just within the sphere of work. What are the relationships? That would be the R of real. What are these encounters that we are engaged in, that we are taking as an opportunity and allowing ourselves to know ourselves deeper and to create a breadth of reach that can be such, it sort of crawls all over you, but not in that sort of negative sense of crawl. It allows you to nest into a word that is within crawl, raw. Keep it raw and keep it just present, and allow yourselves to make mistakes. And it just might be an opportunity for more questions, more relationship building. And the A is that African sense that I wish to honor, which is, I mean, I think in the public it often is said African time, African time. It's part of a myth that I'm looking to be active in creating and in supporting. African thinking. African thinking. It's slow. It's different. It talks in metaphors and myths and mystical storylines, almost as a permanent. I actually had to learn a different way of thinking when I came to Europe. So, African thinking. And the L would be within the word real, leadership and eldership. There is, for me, an opportunity for wide bodied kin who are being invited by their own volition. You know, when you surrender and it's no longer a choice, that's the real. That's the space that I'm interested in. And welcoming relationships, embodied encouragement, and acceptance that we have an opportunity and we're going to learn together, and the love guidance that exists when elders come together. And for that, I take the end of this to state again my deepest gratitude at the invitation that I was asked and I received as an asked. And therefore I said with the deepest of joy, thank you, I'm in. Let's have fun. Let's see what comes up. Let's display our wares, make mistakes, and see what happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolanda. Now, this does speak to, again, the very particular kind of container that you've both spent the last while crafting together, which I named earlier, and you've come up with the title "Living Stories." And just the threads of this again came through Miche. We had a conversation. It was something that you were really drawn to sort of bring to my attention as well. I was like, how are we contending with this? Um, and it was through that impulse or instinct, or just a little tap on the shoulder from life saying, you should pair Miche with Yolanda, who had again already been present in the school for quite some time, the School of Mythopoetics, and it felt like the right something. And that's that's all I did. All I can take credit for is just maybe you should talk, and life did the rest. But you have come up now with a very particular 3-month depth encounter, which has been named, which begins in November, hosted through the School of Mythopoetics, to really approach these conversations and these relationships in the ways that you've been speaking to. And I'd love to give you both some room now to elaborate a bit further of the intention of living stories, and what folks who are drawn to take the leap, what they can find, what they might find themselves in should they decide to say yes.
I'd love to speak to that, and then pass on to Yolanda. We were talking about living myths. We were talking about living stories, and the idea that actually we need new stories. We need to live inside new ways of being with each other. And living stories emerged through many conversations between myself and Yolanda. And given Yolanda's beautiful practice, and she will speak more of this, that is about language and is about weaving stories, I bring in another approach which relates to matter and relates to metaphor, which Yolanda has already spoken to. And I think where we also meet is I am of African soil, white-bodied skin, but from African soil, Zimbabwean born, and also European with a French mother. And again, the resonance of my relationship and the bond that has been growing between myself and Yolanda has got everything to do with that, the tangible memories of the African soil, the smell, the light. And I think we are very, very close in proximity to those unspoken ways of being inside a place and with our own different energies and the intimacies that have somehow fashioned our biographies bring us in a relationship, which means that our different practices can very much interweave. And so my practice with matter, and I work with soil, and I think that's one of the things that this is a bowl, this is an African pot made out of burnt clay. And there is the soil from my own home in Suffolk with a little bit of gold leaf, just to show that soil is our gold. So my work ritual space that's bounded, that creates a container of safety, a threshold space where we can actually practice being different from the ordinary everyday, where we might feel a little more constrained and limited. And so that is something that between myself and Yolanda, we will be creating different pathways and different directions and energetic impulses through our different practices within living stories.
Yeah, just hearing our elders speak already takes you off on a wandering, and so it's so interesting how this kind of work has an impact. It has a ripple impact that is surprising, and the invitation in some of the practices that I invite people into is to acknowledge that. It's about a healing of praise. It's about a promise of progress. It's spontaneous. It's somewhat silly, if you still use words like comparison. It's nonlinear and linear. It's stretchy and sticky. It's quite simple. We all know how to do it. I often say that what I find most challenging to speak out loud is just how often I state the obvious. If you are here, in whatever envelope you're in, and you are doing the very best you can to not cause harm, to understand that silent is not always what is being asked for, to know that we have the greatest battle between our ears, then the invitation is to take up sacred forms of practice. So this is non-denominational, not religious. All forms of language may never create the kind of image we need. There are occasions for silence. There are occasions for writing, where writing is called for. There is always a space to speak your truth. And it's somewhat performative. Even I've come to acknowledge that. don't quite know where it's taking me because it's sufficient space, and only earth and soil can express this. It's sufficient space for air, for fire, for water reserves, and for that sense that you matter. This is more than elemental. You, quite literally, matter. And when our elders spoke that word matter, it landed in a soft space in my heart. I'll do my part. It matters. It will transform.
Mm.
It's shape shifting and it will take form. It starts in the invisible. And in the words of a beautiful artist, John Baptiste, drink water. That's the best I can offer. When you join this experience, have some kind of new relationship you allow yourself with water. Drink water.
Yeah, yeah, it will be very quenching. This experience will deeply nourishing. We will be in a bare awakening space with each other, and the people who we're really inviting are white-bodied kin who are present, who are purposeful, and who are prepared, and who know that a sanctuary space where we can show up raw and real and realize another way that we can be and how we can show up as white-bodied kin for our beautiful black and brown kin and the global majority who are really calling us. They are calling on us, white-bodied kin, to please step up, show up, shine for us.
Yeah, it always creates such healing when we allow ourselves to speak our truth. So it just comes through, and I will share. I am of multiple heritages, and Kilimanjaro and the River Nile are two. And I'm a mother, and my living child is a son. And this work, 50 years into it, has reminded me on more than one occasion. We shall all experience treason. The word son is there. At the end, we shall all have a season. The word son is there at the end. And we shall make a reason as to why we show up. And my reason, my heart reason, is I listen. At the heart of the word heart is ear. I listen. And I knew it is an honor to be in this role. I have a child that has transitioned, and I take being a member of our human family and that of the wider sentient beings network deeply seriously. And that allows me to be quite childish and playful. I'm grateful that my son is here, and I intend to use these words to speak truth to a moment such as this. It's particularly for those who have family, who are aware that we have an opportunity, who have said to themselves on multiple occasions, I do not like what I see, and who have recognized, if not you, who? If not now, when? My work is for now. In the acrostic poem that is now is the word normalized, ordinary, and wisdom. May you seek your inner leadership. May you speak your truth, and may you hold yourself accountable and responsible. And I say this as a lover of architecture and a deep lover of archaeology. It takes a tiny step to be headed towards the sky, but my invitation is to be right here, right now, in the right there where you are a whole series of words nested in there. Now, more than ever, nowhere and excuses are no longer sitting softly in my heart. I speak and I share, showing up for that and just that alone. Thank you.
May I just add a little nugget to Yolanda's words? already in the few months that we have known each other, we have discovered how our relationship is in itself a healing space for ourselves. And there's some beautiful phrases that have come out of this fertile kinship. And I would look to inviting those who would take that leap to come and be with us on Living Stories, that this is a depth encounter of deep trust. And the glow that actually enters one's heart when one knows that one can deeply trust another human being is one that invites such an expansive new relationship to oneself. And when you have that sense, the purpose of coming together in order to offer one's wares and one's experiences just becomes, as Yolanda speaks of, an earth heart. We will all be joining in to discover and to be with the earth heart, which is one of Yolanda's beautiful phrases, and to have that opportunity to increase one's own humanity. None of us are free until all of us are free, and those words have been spoken by many Black leaders, Black thinkers, women and men. And this is an opportunity for us all to grow into our own depthful, expansive beings with joy and grace and an incredible amount of fun and playfulness and such laughter. We have had such laughter together.
Yeah, yeah. Our elder speaks of the word ritual quite a lot and is a living example of that kind of work. And Miche reminded me that in one of my favorite words is ritual, embedded right there, spiritual. Spiritual. And again, it's become something I'm getting to love, to lead, to lean on, to leap with, and to leave behind. A sense of there's only one way, there isn't. And we're not claiming that this is it. But what we are stating is when two women leaders come together, what is an interesting mix is the word rest and the word treasures. And within treasure is the word sure. We aren't sure of much, but we know we are precious, and we work with this knowing it's a spiritual one. We speak from our ancestors knowing their dormant voices hold us up, and if it's true for us, those called in trust will feel it too. A nudge from their people saying, we've remembered, we may have just done this before, and this is an opportunity. Evolve with us. There is a strange looking E in evolve that continues to haunt me. And yet at the core of that is a backward looking love. And we are emerging, and it's forward thinking, it's unraveling, and it's such a joy to know we are held by people with deep lived practices. I get very nervous. It's a month where a lot of my people say, what did you do showing up there? And my answer to that is, in the word there is here. Here I was, clueless, a little less of me and a whole lot more of spiritual. And in amore is in another language. The word more. We want more of this. We found each other because we were agreed. We want more of this. I showed up at the School of Mythopoetics because I felt in my core and in my bones, in the mucus and in the tears, I want more of this. I want to share stories. I want those stories to be received. I want those stories to be learned. If I learned Hansel and Gretel and sprinkled that in the many kindergartens I attended, I want them to know about Kitete. I want them to know about why that spirit lives on and is so excited about the opportunity of being emergent on another soil. Because Kitete
Mm.
speaks through soil. He doesn't need me. He doesn't need me. But together, I'm excited what Kitete could emerge to be for all of us in trust. It's a story, and I'd love that to be part of how we all learn to speak to the next generation. My young ones and teens who are just such a beautiful inspiration, and they have took the word arc and truly set up a beautiful embrace. They're doing it differently, and I'm so grateful for them. Don't want to let them down. Pixels, AI, and all, don't want to let them down. And when I return in the next incarnation, let me not be nervous showing up at the School of Mythopoetics. Whatever antics are going on there, there'll be a place for me, for us.
Mm. Well, I feel school is in session, no doubt. And I've been appreciating just letting the swirl move between you in beautiful ways, and hopefully those listening as well get a sense of what kind of encounter that this will be. And the term fertile kinship, really struck with me. So I really appreciating that as a sense of what's possible when the seeds of the imaginal liberation are planted together. As we wind down this small flavor of the times to come, is there anything else you'd love to touch on before we release this conversation? Oh, sorry, Miche, there you go. You were muted. Yeah.
On the subject of soil and the idea of metaphor, part of the practices that bring such a wild exuberance to groups that I've worked with in the past is to just hold a bowl of soil in one's hands and to understand that when we're holding soil, we're actually in a relationship to the earth, and we're in a relationship to custom, tradition. We're in a relationship to the fertility of a medium that grows food. So in the sense of bringing living soil right into the heart of living stories, what we'll be touching on is looking deep into our own soil and seeing what do we need to actually bring fertility back into our own soil, and to see how we need to nourish the soil of our being. And between Yolanda's weavings and evocations, to then bring the matter of mystery and metaphor through actual practices which are tangible and are felt and smelt and given a space to have resonance for ourselves and for each other, and bringing something back into the commonality of what we all know to be part of kinship, which is our kith and kinship. We belong to the land. And part of our recognition in this work that we do around collective liberation is that we are also healing the land, as well as healing the land within ourselves and the lands for each other.
On my end, I'll talk of the lineages that are honored, the languages that are spoken. You join an online space, and I will speak to this truth. Are you barefoot or with your socks? Are you pajama bottom half and top half presentable? Show up as you. The word power has the word O in it. You owe it to you, to your lineages, in whatever language you speak, to do this and start honoring yourself as a temple of possibility. Reflecting on your home is a place which is an opportunity to continue to feel protected, preserved, and honoring of all that is silent, maybe a little bit too long, and listen, knowing that we are a fulfilled promise. By simply being, we are a fulfilled promise. And now, within our home and in your communities and in your neighborhood, may this online practice invite you to stretch out and lean in, take a leap, and practice what you have possibly researched, read quietly, experimented. It's time it got real. It takes a risk. It requires encouragement. It is an absolute. Whenever there are those words, it creates shivers, but there is an absolute. This healing is real, and love is the answer. Love is the answer. Do it for the love that you express and the one that you've yet to touch upon. May your soul speak. Welcome home. As we say, karibu.
Beautiful invitation there, beautiful weaving. Well, thank you to you both. And I would love to invite folks from now to actually head over to schoolofmythopoetics.com, where you can actually register for this upcoming encounter, which will begin in November. And you can find all the details there that have been lovingly crafted together by these two in that invitation to learn more about your own backgrounds and your own intentions for what folks can expect and the mystery of it all. So once again, thank you for making the time today to meet with us here, and those tuning in live and those who will listen in the times to come. Yeah, thank you to you both.
Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you, Yolanda.
Asante. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Crow's Nest. Please consider writing a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing this episode with your friends. To learn more about the School of Mythopoetics and attend our upcoming events, visit schoolofmythopoetics.com.